In this lesson, you're going to learn about the slope-intercept form of a line. This is technically a review, but it's definitely something we want to go over because when you get to geometry, you will most definitely be working with the slope-intercept form of a line. You're going to discuss parallel and perpendicular lines. In order to do that, you have to know the slope-intercept form of a line. So by the end of this lesson, you will be able to isolate y and rewrite an equation in slope-intercept form, and you'll be able to identify the slope and y-intercept of a function after doing so. The y-intercept form of a line is what you know as y equals mx plus b. The coefficient of x, the number in front of x, is the slope. It describes the slope of the line. So how is this function changing? Is it changing quickly, slowly, positively, negatively? That's all the things that we've discussed with slope. And then you have your y-intercept, and it describes where the line crosses the y-axis. And then you have your variables y and x, and that could be any point that's on the line. So anything that'll make the equation true. I would like to start just by going through how to identify slope and intercept of a line from the equation. So let's just take a look at these first six. Number 1, y equals 5x plus 6. The slope of the line is the number that is in front of x, so that's going to be 5. And the y-intercept is the constant term, that's the 6. So it's the number without the variable. Number 2, the slope of the line is going to be equal to what? A lot of us would write x because there is no number. We don't see a number. But you have to remember that this is the same thing as y is equal to 1x plus 2. And now your slope is 1. The slope is never a variable. The slope is never x. A slope is a number. It describes how the function changes. So x doesn't describe how a function changes. The number does. And then your y-intercept is 2. Number 3, we have y is equal to 1/2 x minus 4. The slope of this line is equal to the whole fraction, that's 1/2. And then the y-intercept is equal to -4. The sign here matters, okay? Number 4, y is equal to 10 plus 2x. It's written a little bit funny. It's technically y equals b plus mx, so we always want to rearrange it so it's mx plus b. And that's going to be y is equal to, this 2x is positive, it comes to the front. And 10 is positive as well, so plus 10. Now we can look at it, it's very easy to get your slope and y-intercept. Slope is equal to 2, y-intercept is equal to 10. Okay, number 5, same thing. It's written in a funny way. We wanted an mx plus b form. The goal for you today is really to always be able to rewrite it as mx plus b and to have y by itself. Because that's what you're going to have to do next year. I know that we have been saying you can do things in different ways as long as you can see it, but really, truthfully, you would want to be able to write it as y equals mx plus b, so there's no confusion. So we're going to take this negative x, and we're going to put it in the front, and this is a -2, we're going to put it behind, so negative x minus 2. We have an invisible 1 here. That slope is equal to -1, and the y-intercept is equal to -2. Number 6, 4x plus 2y is equal to 10. You know, there's a lot of different things that students would do with this, but the bottom line is that, you know, we would end up saying maybe the slope is 4 and the y-intercept is 10. But that is not true because it is not in y equals mx plus b form. So what we're going to do today is isolate y and get it into y equals mx plus b form so that we can get our slope and our y-intercept. Before we do that, though, I just want to be able to write the equation of a line given a slope and y-intercept. So if you're given a slope of 4 and a y-intercept of -3, the equation is going to be y is equal to 4x minus 3. Okay. Number 2, the slope is -3. The y-intercept is 9, so that's going to be y is equal to -3x plus 9. Number 3, the slope is 1. The y-intercept is -12. So y is equal to 1x minus 12. But remember, we don't write that 1 there. We want things to be as simple as possible. So it's x minus 12. Number 4, the slope is -2/3 and the y-intercept is 0. So again, y is equal to -2/3 x plus 0. But we don't need to write plus 0. That just makes things look more complicated. So all we have to do y is equal to -2/3 x. Okay. So now the purpose really of this lesson. So what about the equation 4x plus 2y equals 10? What is the slope and what is the y-intercept? In order to show you this, I'm going to show you how this compares to solving an equation in one variable. So you can see here, I took the x away. We're going to solve this equation just like we would any other equation. I'm going to compare it to solving for y over here. So if you have 4 plus 2y equals 10 and you're solving for y, you know that you're going to subtract the 4 from both sides, and you would have 4 minus 4 is 0. Bring the 2y down, and I'm going to leave this as 10 minus 4 right now because that's really what we have. We have 10 minus 4. What we automatically do is simplify, which is good. You should do that when you solve an equation in one variable, but for now, I just want you to see the comparison. We are going to subtract this entire term here, 4x minus 4x, because remember, our goal is to solve for y in both of these equations. So 4x minus 4x is 0, and we bring down this 2y. And now, remember, we always want to be in mx plus b form. So we're going to do the x term first. That's -4x, and then plus 10. So you can see the similarity here where we took these two terms and we have them separate. So -4x and 10 minus 4. I know that this is not rearranged, but that's because what you know is that 10 minus 4 is equal to 6. Okay? So the next thing that you would do if on solving for y on the right hand side here is you would divide by 2. Right? So 2 divided by 2 is 1, so those cancel out, and y is equal to 3. So that would be your answer here. But because we have a variable on the left hand side, we cannot do that. We can't combine this to be a 6x or just a 6. So we leave it as is, and we divide every single term by the coefficient of y. So 2 divided by 2 cancels out, that's 1. So y is equal to, and now we're going to simplify all of these fractions. So we have -4 divided by 2, that's -2 x, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So your answer here is -2x plus 5. Let me undo that. So what's the slope and what's the y-intercept now? We know the slope is -2, and the y-intercept is 5. So whereas before you might have thought it was 4 and 10, you can see clearly that it is not that. Okay, so I have, I think, 6 examples. I'm going to go through them. If you feel that you understand this at any point in time and you want to start on the work, you can do that. But I'm going to go through all of them for you. Number 1, we're going to isolate y. We're going to solve for y. So we want to get that y term by itself. So we're going to subtract 3x from both sides. And we have 2y. Remember, 3x minus 3x is 0. And we bring down the 2y. Is equal to negative 3x plus 12. And we're going to divide by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And y is equal to, now this here, negative 3 divided by 2, we are not going to turn that into a decimal. When you get to geometry, the decimal is not going to be helpful for parallel and perpendicular lines. You want to keep it as a fraction. You have to start to get comfortable with your fractions. So we're going to keep it because you can't divide 2 into negative 3. The fraction is negative, so it's negative 3/2 x plus 12 divided by 2 is 6. So what's our slope and what's our y-intercept? The slope is negative 3/2, and the y-intercept is 6. All right, number 2. 4y minus 8x is equal to 16. You can see here that it's slightly rearranged. The 8x is not first, that negative 8x, but it doesn't matter. We're still going to solve it the same way. We're going to move the x term by using inverses to the other side. Negative 8x plus 8x is 0. That's the purpose of doing that. Bring down your 4y. The x term is first, followed by the constant term. And we divide by 4. Four divided by 4 is 1. And y is equal to 8 divided by 4 is 2. And 16 divided by 4 is 4. It's nice when it works out like that. No fractions. So the slope is 2. And the y-intercept is 4. All right. So 4 more examples, and then that'll be it. So x minus y is equal to 9. So this one might be a little bit more tricky because you're not seeing many numbers, but we're going to walk through it now. Even though there's no 1 here, we know that it's there. So we're going to subtract that 1x from both sides. Okay, so x minus x is 0. We're going to bring down this whole term, including the negative. Negative y is equal to x term first, then the constant. Now, you think that y might be alone, but there's a invisible 1 lingering right here. So we have a negative 1 there. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide all of these terms by negative 1, which really just changes their sign. So we have negative divided by negative. Now we have positive y, a positive 1y. We have negative x divided by negative 1, that's positive x. And we have positive 9 divided by negative 1, that's negative 9. So that's y equals x minus 9. The slope is your invisible 1, and your y-intercept is negative 9. Number 4, we're going to add 10x to both sides. Cancel that out. Bring this down. divide by negative 4. Y is equal to 10 over negative 4x minus 1. One thing you want to do is simplify the fraction. So the greatest common factor of 10 and 4 is 2. So we're going to divide both of those by 2. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. So now it's simplified. So the slope is negative 5 over 2. And the y-intercept is negative 1. Notice that I took that negative from this 2 here and I put it out front. When you have one negative in a fraction, you're saying it's positive divided by negative, so that means that the entire fraction is in fact negative. You'll see an example of when that would become positive now. So if we look here, we're going to subtract 7x from both sides. Bring down the negative 3y. The x term goes first, followed by the constant term, divided by negative 3. Y is equal to negative 7 over negative 3x minus 5. But again, there's too many negatives here. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, so we can get rid of both of those negatives, and it's 7 over 3x minus 5. The slope is 7 over 3. The y-intercept is negative 5. All right, last example. Add 5x to both sides. 5y is equal to 5x plus 10. Divide everything by 5. Y is equal to 5 divided by 5 is 1. I'm not going to write that 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Slope is that invisible 1. Y-intercept is 2. All right, and that's it.